this get started. So we're just setting up, getting ready for the show. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. People have been inboxing me, been asking me about when we're going to do something for men, and this is what that is today. And Gerard, give me the cue when we're ready. For the next 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. Okay. 6 weeks. We'll do a 6 weeks course or 6 weeks and see, but we're going to flow. So I'm waiting on my the man behind the scene to get it together. Right. And then he had to put it in the starring role. All right. Welcome, everyone, to Stories of Heroes. I am your host, LaShawna Alfred. I am the CEO of You Change Counseling and Consulting. I am excited about tonight for the men who will be discussing today, our fathers, our big homies, what else was it? Yeah, our mentors, right? Seriously, this is what it is, right? I don't script. So if we're going to be real, we're going to be real. So tonight we're talking about, the men are just going to have a discussion. We're talking about character. We're talking about some of the things that the men go through. It's not about being contentious. It's about really respecting one another's point of view. So as a therapist, I don't get caught up in gender roles. Because behavioral health and mental health has no gender. It's not gender specific. And so I'll be in the room, but I'll definitely be behind the scenes because I want the men to have an opportunity to just have a space where they feel safe to talk about whatever they want to talk about. But today you're going to be introduced to the men who are here, and we have people in the studio audience. So if you or someone would like to be in the audience for this is going to be 6 weeks. Again, various topics that are related to men and how they have to walk through this thing called life, right? The different stigmas and all of that stuff. So if you have questions tonight, we want you to ask questions. And without further ado, I am going to pass the mic to Sam. But I would like for Sean to introduce himself.
I'm Sean Highsmith. What is any else thing I need to say about myself? CEO of H&H Residential and Commercial Services and High Life Boat Charters. And I'm not a father, but I am married. 31, be 31. And that's me.
I'm David Ross, or Gutta Dave, whatever you know me by. Yeah, Gutta Dave. Yeah, a lot of people know me by that. I do music. I do all of the arts, pretty much. A little bit of local activism, leadership roles. Wherever community need me, that's where I be, pretty much.
My name is Gerard Poole, graphic designer, visionary, creative. All of the above when it comes to arts. That's really it.
Hey, I'm Samuel Alfred of You Change. And we're here to set the stage. Hello, sir. Come on in. But anyway, this is definitely unscripted, unprompted, and we're just going to get real with men. Hopefully you out there, it's not about us agreeing on any particular item. It's just your story, what you've been through, the things that you deal with. I may agree, may disagree, but your opinion and how you feel about things are important. One of the things I would like to give to you right off the bat is about your perception. Your perception and how you deal with things is your reality, but it doesn't make it truth. The dictionary form of your perception is your perception, not necessarily a reality. So as we going forth, we pushing it. It may be some moments for profane. We just being alive and we kicking it. One of the things that we want to start off with was some issues that you're dealing with today. Mine was today dealing with my son who lost a friend. The reality is on the news. And not to come at him with why, but as much as being a father in comfort, me being a combat veteran, I've seen individuals who have died right next to me, and you're talking to them one moment, and the next thing you know, they're scrambled eggs. And so how to deal with it, it was like a disconnection for me. So I learned that when death happens to close ones, or I try not to get too close because I don't want to see me cry. I don't want these things to happen where I can't be into the, or how would you say, I can't explain it. And so it was a very difficult morning for me, trying to be an adjustment and trying to be, as my wife put it to me, trying to be a mother father today. Trying to be a mother and a father wrapped up in the same thing. In other words, trying to show my soft edge, not this correction, not this disciplinarian, not this protector, not this provider, but hey, man, that's my son, and he's aching. What words do I use? So with that there, we can pass the baton around, talk about your issue. That was mine today, and it caught me off guard. Because here I am saying, Sam, why you ain't going to school? What's up? I ain't feeling well. Oh, no. My mind said, oh, you didn't oversleep again and all of this kind of stuff. But that was not needed today. He need to see me in a different platform. Anybody, what was yours today? What was your role today? What got you?
I'll touch a little bit on what you just said about like kind of going through that with your son. Because I believe a lot of parents, that's really relevant to a lot of parents. A lot of these young people are losing friends and people who they call brothers, and that's like a very traumatic experience. I've seen youth go from in between students to gangsters from dealing with that trauma. So I think that it needs to be some type of positive reinforcement for parents to have those conversations, they tough conversations, to be able to talk to your child about burying a friend. You know, it's something that you never imagined that you would have to talk about, but it's a reality right now. That's like the climate right now, you know. So that's why I think that needs to be something we think of premeditated.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I've only lived out here in Toledo like 2 years. I've heard about so many like high school kids that from either suicide or from gang violence, whatever like that. I guess in a sense, I lost more people in my adult life. What kind of conversations did you have with your son today? Well, like, how did those talks and things go as he's mourning? Because the 28-year-old me now, I lost my grandparents 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I kind of just ran back here to Toledo just to hide off or whatever like that. It wasn't nothing that nobody could say to me. I just needed to be alone. But I don't know how old your son is. I'm 15. 15, like, what do you say to a 15-year-old that just lost his friend that's also still maneuvering through life and trying to figure things out?
One of the things, Gerard, that was difficult was me not to put my scenarios and my emotions into it. In other words, like I just lost my mom, just lost a best friend, all within probably about 2 months. And not trying to say, oh, man, this is what I did when this happened to me. No, this morning wasn't that time. This morning, I say, son, what can I do for you? How do you feel right now? I don't have the words. But you know what, son? I hate what went down, but I'm so glad it wasn't you. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't a place where I had an answer for him. And this is why I had to really open myself up to the Lord before I went in there. Because my wife said, get in there, get in there. And I'm saying, like, no, I can't. Because right now, Sam will come out. You know, the combat vet will come out. The one who just lost will come out. That's not what my son needs right now. if I didn't do anything but sit down at his feet and hug his legs. Let him know that I care. And right now, it ain't about this or that or giving an example. No, it's right now, baby. I'm glad it wasn't you.
Well, I never. I mean, I'm blessed. I never really lost anybody that's like really close to me. But the thing that I find interesting is I think where it has to start is to find out how and when the jump happened. Like I'm 30, 31, and I remember in high school, there was a couple cats that thought they was gangsters, but we was probably going to fight people or doing stuff. But it seems like it's been a huge jump. Like we skipped a couple levels, and now we just right at it's real killing going on in schools. And I mean in high school ages, and it's like I think that's where the investment may need to be put is to find out how did we just go to such a drastic measure. You know what I'm saying? Because kids is not just fighting no more. How are the kids getting the guns? How are they getting the mentality to really? I mean, I remember the first time I shot a gun, and the first thing I thought to myself was, how could you just kill somebody? Like the power in that, and I just it's hard to envision a child taking that power and aggressively, wholeheartedly, and got his right mind and really just doing that. So I think I don't know what it would take to get to that, but I just feel like those are the questions that need to be answered for steps to really be made. Cause it just really seemed like it's just been a drastic jump. Like we just done got to this point, and it's like the city seeming like Grand Theft Auto, but with kids. You know what I'm saying? So that's all I got.
I think the access to stuff is just mad accessible now. Like how you said, like I'm only 3 years younger than you, and I don't know how many years I'm younger than you, Dave. But like then we was just fighting, and fighting it wasn't cool, but it was like fighting. That's what we did was fighting. Now I think they trying to prove themselves, wherever like that. The music that they listen to. You gotta tote something. You gotta carry a gun or wherever like that. That's just what they influence. I remember I didn't smoke weed until like I really came down for school to college or wherever like that. One, because I was an athlete, and two, like man, my mom would have killed me if she would have smelt something on me or wherever like that. It wasn't that it was bad. It was just like, what you doing? Like you about to mess up your whole life or wherever like that, trying to be high or wherever like that, or drinking. It was really when I left the house I did it. Whereas now, I think just kids doing it way younger. I see all the time I'm in a gas station wherever like that. They getting carded for those breeze pens, wherever like that, and either the gas station ain't letting them get it, or as I'm coming out, hey man, hey, can you grab this for me? And it's like, bro, you want to do tobacco at 16? Like, what? Like, why? Like, why you want to do tobacco so bad or wherever like that? Like, I remember doing tobacco because I couldn't smoke wherever like that, and realizing like, man, I'm messing up my health. Wherever like that, so I just think it's just more things are just accessible right now, and different things, and the feeling of that look cool. I see such and such doing it. Everybody got that little it's the drawstrings for the lighters, the drawstrings for the breeze. Everybody got backwoods now. If you carrying, it's the new thing or wherever like that. I'm not saying that it's cool. It's just like everything is more accessible now.
Well, from my perspective, I deal with a lot of youth, right? A lot of them are gangsters. A lot of them are in between. A lot of all across the spectrum. What I realize more than ever, these kids are expressing themselves, but just they have a false sense of reality. That's all it is. So they Rod Wave got them all emotional and talking about things that we wouldn't dare have talked about, but it's not equating to their actions. You know what I mean? So they talking about depression. They talking about being triggered. They having these conversations, but they not positive. They're just saying, "Oh, I smoke you because you triggering me," or I'm depressed today. I want attention. Like they have a false sense of reality when it comes to how they deal with their emotions, and it's just like that barrier that exists is kind of like it comes from layers and layers of becoming molded as a child, maybe missing mother, a mother figure, a father figure, all these different things, this missing elements creating a mixing pot that creates kids who behave like that. Like a kid who uh, have the audacity to shoot somebody and have the audacity to say they're depressed. You know what I'm saying? It's just like the climate we living in right now. And I feel like us as men, we have to be as vulnerable as possible, but with positive reinforcement. Because the thing of it is having these conversations with young people saying, "Oh, I was in love and somebody hurt my feelings." They look at you like, "Man, you just gonna say your feelings was hurt? You willing to say that?" "Oh yeah, I'm vulnerable because guess what? I done proved myself time after time. I don't have to be hard for anybody. All I have to be is it's easy to be hard. It's hard to be emotional and say how you feel. That's the difficulty thing right there. So if you want to be a gangster, show some emotions and try to heal from it. You know, that's my perspective."
And I think really, and it might, and it's just my perception. Like Sam was talking about perception. To me, the conception of being a man growing up could have led to some of these things. I mean, if you go to any nostalgic movie in the black culture, at least, manhood was not being emotional or not. I don't know why the movie Baby Boy just came to mind. That whole movie, he was really expressing himself, but it wasn't really like accepted in a way. You know what I'm saying? Like the whole situation with his mom and dude, and he was being vulnerable, but then it was the reactions of other people was, "You supposed to be a gangster, what you doing?" All, you know what I'm saying? So, but that was the conception back in the day as a man. I think everybody could probably say they father done, as growing up as an early teenager, 11 or 12, quit crying so much. Or don't do that. You know what I'm saying? Somebody hit you, hit them back. And that's all cool, but I think everything got to be in moderation, because when it's so heavy, it start to push us more and more to the fact of where we feel like we not supposed to be emotional beings. You know what I'm saying? And we talked about this when we talked about this when we all met the first time. Like the stereotype about being vulnerable is very acceptable to women, and people tell you need to deal with your emotions and you need to address this and that. But as man, I think the pressures of being a man is at an all-time high. And so when you have those pressures and you have to put your efforts towards being a man, being a provider, being a safety net for your family and all this, you really don't have much left at the end of the day to think about what you feeling mentally. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to think about or to be down on yourself about, because you wasn't able to make the right money you needed to make this month when the bills is coming. You know what I'm saying? You got to just find a way to make it happen. We don't really have the time or the space or the acceptance to really deal with some of the stuff that we really need to deal with emotionally. And that's from just years and years of that old school perception or conception of being a man. You know what I'm saying? So I think that may have led to some of it. I mean,
One of the things that you brought to my mind, Sean, I'm probably the oldest up in here, going be 70 this year. And there was some things that were going on when I came up as a young adult. And one of the things that you said is that we got babies raising babies. And now here I am. I did the act to have the child. Bless God that the child come forth. But hell, I don't even know how to raise my damn self, let alone taking the responsibility for raising someone else. So how can I teach someone on how to be a parent when, hell, I don't even know how to be a parent myself? I need somebody still to parent me. And so now I got a kid, and then you do a bounce back, and now you got two kids. You got one by this one by that one. And how do I collectively teach them values? We was talking about being a man. And one thing I found out over the years, over the decades of being a man, and it can come down to one word: take responsibility. Take responsibility. Shouldn't nobody have to tell you that that's your kid? Oh, well, wait a minute, man. I got to go babysit my kid. How the hell you babysitting your damn kid? How do you, in this mindset, believe that that's not your responsibility? Why? Where did that become woman's work or girl work? You did it. Take responsibility for it. Now, in the pattern, I also seen over the decade that a lot of men, when they have kids or when they make kids, they have to have what we call, what is the new word now, mama drama. And so now the mamas is holding the kids hostage, and the man says, listen, I want to take care of my son, but I don't want you. We had an act. I no longer want to take care of you, but I will take care of my son. Well, I bet you won't. I bet you won't get an opportunity to do that. You're going to do this for me. And when you put a whole lot of these strands together, it's amazing how we can't come up with one solution, because there is none. There is no one solution. I can't tell you to take responsibility. You may not even have a job. You may not be educated. That one night stand led to 3 kids. What you going to do? Because guess what? The grind, I'm trying to make it myself by any means possible. If I got a sling.
Let me interject with you a little bit. So like, I'm not an actual parent, but you know, I've raised kids and been in kids' lives for a majority of my life. But a lot of people have a misconception that being a parent and having kids is the same thing. It's not the same thing.
Talk to me, sir.
So what they do is, a lot of people be like, oh, I raised you right. I was a provider, but there's so many elements missing when you become a provider instead of a parent. You could be poor and give all your kid all the values and sustenance that they need to be successful. Or you could be rich and not give them none of it. You know what I'm saying? So people have to draw the line between being a parent and a provider, because it takes both. You just can't just be a provider, and we get stuck in saying that I gave you my best and that's it. But that's not enough. You know what I'm saying? Because no child asks to be brought in this world. No child asks to fail. And a lot of parents feel like I gave you life and I gave you a roof over your head and all these different things. You're supposed to make it off of that, and that's not enough. It's values, and these kids got things that they go through right now that we couldn't even fathom. Like this young man right here, he may be in his schoolwork doing everything he got, but he still have to worry about life and death as he go to the store, or as he mingle with friends who may have crossed the line and got associated with gangs. He has to worry about his affiliation causing harm to him. People who you have social capital, who you have love with, you have to worry about what your relationship can cause for you. Those are things we ain't have to go through that.
I feel like most of the time when kids turn out to be the way they turn out to be, where they out shooting and acting the way they do, is because mom and dad ain't home. You know what I'm saying, with them. And when they raising them up, they throw them in front of the TV, so all they see is shooting up, you know, kissing and hugging and all the things that goes on in the world. So now they out there want to do the same thing that they see on TV. You know what I'm saying? Mom and dad is gone, or they ain't paying no attention. They in another room while the kids out there playing video games, shooting on the video games. So now they grow up, they shooting on video game, and they think that's life and real. You know what I'm saying? That's not life. So when you start showing them the right way to be, that's how they gonna learn. You pay more attention to your kids, so your kids can do what they supposed to do.
I heard something on that. I'm sorry. I heard something on that. To reiterate what you're saying, how does the video game and the TV raise your son or daughter? And so instead of me taking the time as a parent, because you done got on my nerves or this, I'm tired, I'm pulling 2 jobs, guess what? I turn you over to television. I'll turn you over to your jams. I turn you over to the video. Let them talk to you because I'm tired right now.
Just I will say, I think the answer is yes. Just to be transparent, I think we all seen like that sitcom back in the day where parents get divorced and then the child just start rebelling, and that really happened to me. Like my parents was together my whole life, and then when I was 16, they came and said, they was getting a divorce and said they tried to wait as long as they could. I could honestly say that up until that time where we was in a one household, and I lived in the heart of the hood on Belmont, we still didn't get in no riffraff. And it wasn't until we split. Now in my mind, I'm a child. I'm 16. In my mind, I'm like, it was no question I wanted to go with my dad. Why? Because I knew my dad worked a lot. So in that, I got the freedom. You know what I'm saying? And the thing was, and my dad wasn't there a whole lot. My mom wasn't there a whole lot at that point, simply because now you taking two people from one household. Now they have their own households. So now, I mean, they can't be at fault because now they have to make a living for themselves to take care of themselves. It's not a team effort anymore. So, okay, quite naturally, my mom had to work full time. My father had to work full time and, overtime sometimes. So, and then on top of that, now they're single. So now they have to make time for their lifestyle and find somebody and date and all those things do probably take away somewhat of being a parent. But I can honestly say, once my parents got divorced and once I was just with my father and I knew my dad's work schedule, that's when it all started for me. That's when the drinking started. I got arrested the first time when I was 17 with drugs on me and I was drunk and got arrested a couple more times after that, gun charges and all that. But it's crazy because when I used to watch those shows when I was a kid and see those episodes, I'm like, kind of like, man, that's corny. Ain't nobody doing all that just because they. But it happened to me, and I can honestly say that going from that 2-person household to 1.5, you know what I'm saying? And not to say that my parents, they great people, great parents, but when the wages of life hit you, sometimes there's only so much you can do. You know what I'm saying? You gotta work. You gotta pay the bills. So I think they did the best that they could. Eventually, I ended up coming around and going back into the values that they instilled in me. But it took for me to go out here and knock my head a couple times, and for me to realize that, man, this life just ain't worth it. You know what I'm saying? But I don't think parents should be at fault sometimes, because sometimes just how life plays its part, sometimes you just can't be that parent that you used to be, because now life is taking you down another road with new responsibilities and all of that. So
One thing that my mom say now to me is that there's no book on how to be a parent and no book on marriage. It's different for every household. It's different for every relationship and things like that. So for me, my parents are still married, but I had some similar issues in 2008 when a recession hit up in Detroit, and it was bad. Like, they ain't had no job and whatnot, and they doing what they need to do to still provide and whatnot. So they maybe when they was once working one job that paid enough, now they working 2, 3 just to make that same amount. And so that left room for me and my brother, and he's 6 years older than me, and shoot, he's 6 years older than me, so I'm following his lead in whatever he doing or whatever like that. And so he's staying out all night. I'm with my big brother. Like, I know he gonna protect me wherever like that. So kind of it's surreal to say like that the situation can still happen, whether it's it's one parent in the household, or if it's two. I think it's just situational based and what's going on, that the same outcomes can still happen. But one thing that I'm grateful for now is that by me living so far away from home, well, not so far away, but enough, I can call and ask questions now. It's about communication and understanding. Like, hey, why was this like this? Or help me break this down as I'm trying to navigate life by myself and instilling my own values and how to move forward and stuff like that.
Real quick, I'll touch on what my opinion. Um, and the reality of it is I know kids who got parents, two parent household. It's just it's a hard no for me that it's the parents. It take a village. It takes your child to have ambition and passion and all these different things that make them want to go in a different direction because there's so many things fighting for them to go in the wrong directions. So the key word is and this when this comes to when you say babies raising babies, like, so when we were younger and we were crying and they said boys don't cry, or they said bottle up your emotions, don't do this, don't do that, it's because they didn't have the capacity to address it. And that's what we dealing with. That's generational. So if my mother didn't know love because her mother didn't know love, and then her grandmother and mother only knew hardship. They come from like real life poverty and hardship. So this is generational, and on top of it being systematical. You know what I'm saying? So like what it takes is for us to learn to heal as a village, and it's a lot of wisdom and listening. Like, a lot of people like, if you're a God-fearing person or you believe in God, God listens. Yeah. That's the most, besides granting blessings, God listens, and we don't humbly take that in and walk in His footsteps with listening to each other and learning to heal from this systematic trauma that we go through. Because like I said, these kids are going through things and their parents don't have the capacity to even deal with it because our parents didn't have the capacity to deal with it. It's just continuing and continuing and continuing. So every time I point that one finger, it's three pointing right back at me. And people want to say it's the parents, they need to get their kids. But guess what? A kid makes decisions. And if you don't have the capacity to teach your kid values and value of life, first off, if you don't have the capacity to teach your kids that, how are they going to walk these streets with it? That's just my opinion. So, when people say they need to get their kids, I think we need to get the kids together.
I want any of the kids that's here, teenagers, have any input on that? What's your any input? Okay. I just want to make sure your voice matters. It's okay. It's okay.
How many are in relationships?
I'm sorry, let me.
Oh, no, you got a question?
It says, but how is the village to work when parents say, don't tell my kids what to do?
Well, that tells me that don't tell my kids what to do. There are certain elements that are right and wrong, regardless of who the auntie, the parent, the neighbor. If I see your son out here breaking windows or out here instituting flat tires, spiking them or anything like that, what you mean? Just let your kids just do that? And chances are he's doing that to somebody else's car, not yours. And so for a parent to take that position as if this is my child only, we're not trying to raise robots. We're just trying to raise kids with an awareness that when these forks of the roads come, they have enough integrity to choose the right one. I found out that integrity is really being honest with yourself. It doesn't mean that you're perfect. It means that you're being honest with where you are in this particular situation. But for me, if you're not there to see your child act crazy or act up, then of course somebody's going to tell them something.
So I just want to chime in. I'm an educator, so I deal with second and third graders. And when I'm dealing with some of my students, it's kind of difficult because I have to reach out to the parents, depending on the environment they're in or the situation that I'm dealing with on a regular basis. My goal is to go into the school and educate them so they can be successful. But sometimes, depending on the situation, depending on what happened at home, they can't come into school and be physically in tune to learning. So when we reach out to the parents, it's hard to get the parents inside of the school to try to help them. You know, so when you reach out, it's like, okay, well, what do they do? You know, you tell them, all right, I'll try to get this together. Come back to school the next day, it's the same thing. But it's a charter school. It's not like TPS or anything like that. So it's kind of difficult to try to help them when you're not getting that support. So that's what I deal with on a regular basis. And me being a first-year educator, it's kind of hard because I can't think of a time when I went back in elementary school and I had to deal with this. It's a different generation, you know, so.
I'll say, me personally, I know when to pick my battles and I know when to fight. And, like, I'm unapologetically, my why is youth. I'm a youth advocate to the fullest extent. Not one adult in the world mean more to me than one child. So if you want smoke about me helping your kid, run it. So that's just how I feel. 'Cause a lot of parents are in the way. Yeah. They can be in the way, and it's not their fault. You know, ignorance is just, it is what it is. So I'm going the extra mile. I'm gonna do my best because, you know, a lot of people told me to bump my head, and I wish they didn't. You know, so I'm gonna go out of my way and make sure I'm gonna be the helmet for them. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, if a parent don't like it, that's when I'm gonna pick that battle. This is me.
I'm gonna say this, like I remember when I was a kid growing up, right? I wasn't born here, and when I'm from Jamaica, and then when I was in Jamaica, a lot of the people, when you walk down the street and you're cussing and acting a fool, they gonna discipline you, or they gonna tell your mama and your daddy what you did, and they gonna discipline you. In America, you can't do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, ever since they said you can't discipline your kids or whatever, everybody just let the kids do whatever they do. That's what I see going on. Like, I got family members, you know what I'm saying, that their kids go to school and act a fool. And the next thing you know, the teacher called them or the principal called them, and they like, oh, I'm going up there, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, you know what I'm saying? Instead of saying, well, what did they do, and sit down and talk to the teacher or the principal and see what they can do to help the kids them. They're not doing that. They're ready to fight the teachers. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, everybody need help. Yeah. We can't expect for the kids them to get help unless we all get together and help them. So,
one of the things that you're saying in there is that when I came up, you know, I came up going to school. Like I said, my age determines a lot of things. I used to believe in old school and new school and all of that. But there was a certain structure that was in the schools that I see now that's not there. I went to Duke Moe College. Everybody know that's Gunkel, Gunkel University. I had more men teaching students. And when you got big guys, you know, former basketball players, football players, and they come back to the community, they come back as teachers. And I would go to one male class or another male class, I would probably have 3, 4 male classes that I would attend before I would actually get to a woman that's teaching school. I'm not saying as far as the gender, but there was a certain example because most of the times we wanted to play sports or athletic, and we were in their classes, so it was automatic, like, okay, let me set my butt down. And then one of the things that happened in schools that no longer happens is the fact that they used to take a paddle, and they didn't hit nothing but the gluteus or the butt or your ass. They wasn't going up your back and all of that, and you would take 3 or you would take 2. And it was not just the sting of the paddle, but it was the embarrassment of my other students that seen me go back there. And when the SWAT hit, they knew it was me. And they would definitely make you go, out! So it wasn't like you holding it, you know, like I'm a tough guy, I can hold it. No. And so I'm just saying there's a lot of elements that are missing. And you're absolutely right. Children, I mean, the mother's going up there getting on the teachers for doing something to their son. They're acting a fool, but yet and still they'll do the same thing at home, and you won't do anything. And so it's not about one way. Please, I am old-timey. But it's not one way that I figured out. But that had to stop because the adults were abusing the kids.
What are your take on punishment?
So, there's a limit to where there's a limit between abuse and discipline. And if you don't know that line, do not touch your children. If you don't have control over yourself, do not touch your children. If you're emotional, do not touch your children because you will scar them more than you will help them. I've seen kids behave just like they ignorant. Excuse me, they're ignorant ass parents and being abusive. To the little maybe the sister or this raising the little brothers. You know what I'm saying? They beating them like the mother do them. They using the language. They giving the same energy like you just. And it's just because they don't know no better. But you got to pay attention to that because when your child go off in the world and thinking that somebody can say something to them that causes for violence, that's where you got kids who think they can kill because somebody does something to them. You know what I mean? So that's what bred that. Abuse is what bred these young people from thinking that killing is an option because my generation, killing wasn't an option. It wasn't an option. It was fighting. We would fight about it. We might even rumble about it or jump you about it. But killing you was not an option. So now you have kids who think it's levels to discipline, it's levels to reaction. The gift we have as human beings is to reason. And we got kids out here and people out here who are reacting because it's bred through them through abuse. I myself was abused. You know what I'm saying? So I'm a little more I'm a little more against it, but at the same time, I done seen some kids who need their butt whooped. You know what I mean? Because they not getting the big picture, here and there. But you got to be mindful of what type of child you have. You got to be mindful of how you discipline them. Because I see people lose control with their kids all the time, and I'm that person that say you crossing the line. I'm a dip in your business if you abuse your child around me. So that's just me, and I'm a sum total of my experiences. So that's how I behave with it. But I think it's just something you gotta take serious as a parent or as a disciplinary person. Just think about who you dealing with. The kid, you could this kid right here could be really sensitive, and I scarred him for life. You know what I mean? Or this kid could be he needed tough because he never knew nothing else. So it's just you gotta weigh your options and you gotta be conscious of it.
No, definitely. I think there's nothing wrong with being corrected either, because growing up, my dad said either you gonna listen to me or you gonna listen to somebody tell you when to get up and clean inside a building that you don't want to be in. And I used to think like, man, you don't know what you're talking about. And first night I went to jail, and they told us we got to wake up at 4:30 to clean, and I had to do window sills. I'm like, I see what that man was talking about. And so, like, now I say this to the younger man in the room. I'm still at 28 getting corrected by some man that's in this room, man that's outside this room. Like, I moved improperly. Hey, I got to talk to you. And we had a conversation. But my younger self, I'm mad. Like, why they want to talk to me? Like, I ain't doing nothing wrong. They don't even know the whole story, wherever like that. And it was the real genuine love of how they approached me and set me down. Like, nah, I see I see what you're trying to do in life, but the way you going about it, you gonna mess up everything. Wherever like that. Let me teach you some stuff, and I really have to be teachable to sit there and say like, dang, I am moving wrong. How can I correct my actions or wherever like that? But ain't nothing wrong with being corrected. Like literally, like when I say still to this day, I mean like a week ago, I'm still being like corrected by my peers, my friends that call me like, man, you moving wrong, bro. Like, and I'm grateful that I got friends that say that versus bad friends that won't say nothing. Then they laughing at you when you doing, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Because they think it's funny or wherever like that. And then you got to learn once again from the institution or wherever like that. So ain't nothing wrong with being corrected. I'm not a parent to speak on the whoopings or wherever like that. But I did learn some valuable lessons from being whooped, and my parents never took it, too far by the grace of God. But I was doing dumb things and whatnot. I remember I changed like a grade on my report card, and they were just like, "Why would you do that?" And I'm like, "I don't know." Like, and they just like, that was stupid. And I think it was the correction action, because it's like, if they didn't correct me then, 10 years from now, I mean, 10 years from then, I might have been doing fraud or whatever like that, thinking, I don't know, I thought it was, good. So I'm glad that they nipped it in the bud then, or whatever like that, because it helped set me straighter for some things that was coming about.
Sorry, Sean. I wanted to address one of the things that you were saying that is spot on about if you're emotional or you're having an issue, that might not be the time for correction of your son, particularly in sons. Me as a father, a lot of times you take your traditions and your rituals on how you were raised, and you bring them into this era with a child. And I had to find out what type of son I really have. I find out, I found out that some of the things that men have in challenges is that when that boy steps out of his place as son, and he kind of like reminds you that he's entering a place of where he's trying to be a man and challenging you. That was one of the areas that I had really, like, I got crossed my heart, and because I have been guilty, I didn't see the violation and the discipline or the act that was required. I seen a young man who I don't have nothing but love for, and done all that I could do, coming up to me like he a man. Now you on my level, and so it causes you to handle things in a different manner. Anybody out here, can you help me address that situation?
Go ahead. Let him go first. I'll go.
Yeah, so as a father, this is my son right here. So understanding that the basis of if you're in that state of like you're furious, you got to take a step back. Because if I step out of line, then I'm just going to cause him an issue. So for me, it's easier for me just to take a step back, think about it, and then come back to it. Because then I get a clearer understanding of what happened, why it happened. Let's sit down, let's try to break this down, and then get to a better place. Now, with I have two other children, my daughter who's 14, and then my youngest daughter. Predominantly with him, he's 15 years old, and knowing what this world holds for a man is much more relevant to me to try to get him to understand, like, yo, if you process it like this, then it could be easier than trying to go out here and do something that can cause disruption. So I tried to talk to him when it comes to whoopings or things like that. I'm not big on that. I'm more of a trying to understand what's his mindset instead of trying to say, you know what, you did this, I don't like it, whatever. Like trying to get an understanding for him to try to respect it so I can understand how to approach it as a man. It was difficult for me as he was growing up because I had the same method or model as you, but then I had to understand, like, okay, I was once a teenager, and I have to process this in a different way because of this generation. My generation was different, where my father raised me a certain way, but I have to be decisive in his generation to understand that he may be dealing with something that I didn't deal with at all. So that's how I have to process that and then take that into consideration. So
I think I'm not a father, but one thing that my father instilled in me and my brother is that it's a privilege to make decisions. And I think the conversation that's not had enough is that in this world, it's a consequence for every decision that you make. And it's a lot of adults out here that have lost touch with reality that believe they can just do something and it will be no consequences. And I remember a time when I was probably 12 years old, my father's thing was he would provide everything that you needed, But if it was something that you wanted, he made it very clear that he wasn't obligated. But as a man, if you want to go and work for it, then that's a different thing. So I remember just a scenario one, we would go to the barbershop every Friday morning, and my brother 2 years older than me, he was 16, I was 14, and he was working at KFC. So my father thing was, if he was paying for the haircut, you was getting the ball fade. Because that ball fade lasted 2-3 weeks. So my brother, you know, he was working at KFC. He decided he wanted to get a taper, just a little fade, you know, but keeping it all. So that was his privilege, you know what I'm saying? Because he earned it, because he was spending the money on his haircut. So he got his taper. It was my turn to get in the chair. So Foster, I was kind of like my uncle at the time. I was telling him, like, hey, man, I'm getting the same thing my brother got, you know what I'm saying? And he said, did you talk to your dad about that? I said, it's cool, man. Just go ahead and do it. So, you know, he just faded me a little bit. And then once my dad heard that flick of them liners, but he ain't see no hair shaved off in the back, he got up and he came up to me. He said, Foster, what you doing? He said, well, he said that he was deciding he was getting what his brother got. My dad said no words, and he punched me right in the chest. And the thing was, I didn't feel like I was being harmed or anything, but what I did feel was that he was showing me the difference between me and all the other grown men in the room, because ain't none of them getting punched. You know what I'm saying? Like, so when he hit me and that knock came in my throat and some tears dropped, I realized that I'm not a man. I'm a boy amongst men. And it taught me, and the thing was, and when we got in the car, he made it clear, like, there's nothing wrong with getting that haircut, but also made it clear, if you want to make that decision, that it's things that you have to do to be in position to make that decision. And he said, you don't have that privilege right now. So that was one thing that my father instilled in us, that if you want certain things out of life, there's a certain way to go about it. Nowadays, kids, if they just want something, they can want it for no reason. They'll go steal and kill and do whatever they got to do for it, instead of instilling the fact that you can have whatever you want, but it's just a certain way to get it. You know what I'm saying? I think when this when COVID and stuff hit, that PPP loan stuff really showed that people really think they can do whatever they want to do, and there's no consequences. But the government in the systematic ways kind of push people to that. You know, you can't really be upset. You got people that never had nothing ever in their life, and then somebody brings you a platter where you can get 20,000 if you just put this information in. Can't be upset at that, but as a human being, you can't be upset at the consequences that come with that. So I think that's just a lot of things that's just not talked about when it comes to chastisement and punishment. We just don't talk about the cause and effect of making decisions. I know a lot of grown people right now that just make horrible decisions, and I'm the type of friend, I'll call you out on it. You know what I'm saying? I tell people, if you don't want me giving my 2 cents, then don't be friends with me, because I'm gonna tell you, like, dog, why would you just buy that and now you don't know how you paying your cell phone? I mean, it's really that bad. You got grown people that just don't have the mindset of making good decisions, and I think a lot of people may be moving out of desperation. A lot of people come from poverty, so a lot of people come from big families that didn't have nothing, so they got to fight for everything. Like I said, it's all this stuff has just been doubling, tripling from years and years ago. I mean, go back to the school and stuff. Look at the movie Lean on Me. Look how old that movie. That's what we dealing with right now, but it's like times 10. And I think people have to realize those drastic measures that he took to try to turn that whole school, those are the drastic measures that's going to have to be taken to try to turn this around. But it's way worse. That's why I said, like, I don't even know. I'm not a parent. So, and honestly, it make me not even want to have kids in this world, because it's like, it's so many ways that you can go wrong, and there's so many few ways that you can take a safe route. You know what I'm saying? Like, so.
It's a pursuit, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's pursuit. You know, you can't. There's no remedy. There's no instruction manual. It's a pursuit. You know, like in my opinion, your dad could have told you that without hitting you. He could have told you that without hitting you, and it would have had the same effect because it makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Like my dad was like real abusive on an ignorant level. Like he used to say to me this expression that actually affects me to this day. He would say, he would just like he'd say, don't trip over that cord, and I'll trip over the cord, and he'll punch me in my chest. Like, you just gonna say F me? No, well, before he punched me, he'll say, you just gonna say F me? And I'm like, what? I ain't say that. He like, you gonna say F me for real? I'm your dad. You gonna say F me? And I'm just looking like, what are you talking about? I never said F you. Like, I wasn't cussing for them. And then he'll punch me like, I told you to do something, and you did the opposite. That's saying F me. And that's the most ignorant mentality you could ever have as an adult. You get what I'm saying? And he come from layers and layers and layers of abuse, and he really thought that was fair seeming, and adjusted my mind to think that's fair seeming. And I still to this day struggle with it. You know what I'm saying? I might be like I might tell you don't do that, and then you might do that, and I'm just looking at you like, bro, you really think I'm a B? You think I'm soft? You know what I'm saying? That ignorance come out on me. You know what I'm saying? Because he installed it in me. He didn't just like teach it to me. He embedded it in me. You know what I'm saying? So that's what's going on with a lot of these parents is not knowing the right way to be a parent. So they installing ignorance in their kids, and they're installing what poverty installed into them. You know what I mean? Because the language barrier is. Yeah, the language barrier is I got to let you know that I run stuff before I tell you what I got to tell you. Instead of me telling you something that makes sense and you be like, my common sense say that makes sense. I'm going to do it. Because at the end of the day, when I finally learned discipline, my dad told me, you ain't got to clean behind me. Just clean behind you. And I'm like, dang, for real? So all I got to do is clean up what I messed up. You know what I'm saying? And that right there showed me like that's every walk of life. You know what I'm saying? If I understand the consequences of what I do, if I understand that my actions create a reaction, it's all on me. You get what I'm saying? So that's something he taught me without the ignorance. And it was like he probably did it on accident. Just saying, I'm tired of this nigga messing up in the house. And all he got to do is clean up what you mess up. Yeah. And it just taught me everything that he, you know what I'm saying, opposite to what he was doing, installing ignorance in me. You know what I'm saying? So that's all I'm saying, that the language barriers and things that exist through systematic poverty and everything that goes on in the low social economic black community, whatever you want to say, it's just it's planting seeds that ain't growing in the right direction. You know what I'm saying? So that's my take on that.
Here's a question for everybody, even the gentleman that's in the audience. From a personal perspective, so this is about you. How do you handle your emotions? Because I think there's a lot of things that we're expecting our youth to do that we may not have mastered. And if you have, we want you to share so those who are watching will be able to take something away. And be transparent. Do you still struggle with emotions?
I'll be honest. I'm not really. I have grown to be a person that really don't show emotion, and that's the thing that I deal with. I mean, like in my marriage, like my wife asked me, I wish she was more compassionate. But life, like I said, going back to what I said earlier, the pressures of being a man right now is like really, really high. And especially when you got real things going on, you know what I'm saying? Like just, to be transparent as a business owner, I got several people that I'm responsible for every day. And it's like, and then you go home and then I'm responsible for a household as well. It's really, when you got a lot of stuff going on like that to where you were expected to lead in all these aspects, it's really hard to find time to just be like, well, what about me? Am I okay? You know what I'm saying? Every day, if you a man and if you're being the concept of a man that the world has said we should be, it really leaves no time for that. You know what I'm saying? Because it's always something that you got to take care of. You know what I'm saying? That's why I tell people, like, the best relationships is where the gender roles is just out the window. You know what I'm saying? When you really can feel like you have a partner, whether, you know what I'm saying, it's not about who's the husband or wife. It's just the fact that you have a partner. That alone takes the stress levels down so much. And that person also, when they show themselves to be a partner, it makes you able to be vulnerable because we equal. And ain't nobody got to lead in this situation. I could just say how I feel or what I'm going through, and we can speak about it. But like I said, when you got a lot of things going on that you have to take care of, which is my situation, I've just learned to like it doesn't hold much weight in my life. I'm like, I'll be okay, but I gotta handle such and such and such and such. So that is something that I struggle with my emotions. A lot of times I feel like it's not even worth opening them up because it's a trickle down effect, and then now you have to actually deal with it. You know what I'm saying? On top of all the other things, and the world is just asking men to be so many things nowadays. And it's just tough. I mean, everybody is different. Everybody's life is set up different, but that's something that I struggle with. I just don't feel like I have a room or a time span of where I could really just think about me. And then I feel like when and if I do tap into that, now I'm falling behind in all the other things that I was already supposed to take care of. So that's just my perception of it.
I believe that I still struggle with emotions. For me personally, traumatic events. When I was 19 years old, I got shot. So that affected the trust. Going into relationships, being in the marriage and then the marriage ending, that affected trust. That affected relationships. So now being 37 years old, trying to understand that, trying to understand the bigger picture here. Like for me personally, taking care of my family, going to work, things like that. That's what I focus on. So the emotions is always built within inside of me. But what I try to do is try to set up a spiritual moment for myself to try to engage with that, because life is hectic as a man. Trying to deal with family, trying to deal with jobs, trying to deal with those traumatic events that has hindered me when it comes to processes in this life. Just understanding that, sometimes I may have to break down, just to understand that I am human, because sometimes it's rough, trying to show my son that, hey, I'm a tough guy, but in the midst of it all, it might come out like, dude, I'm really having a hard moment right now, or vice versa. Speaking in my relationship, like, look, this ain't really working out for me. I need to take a minute. I need to step back, and I need to understand what I need to do prior to moving forward. So that's how the emotional roller coaster for myself goes. I can't speak on anybody else, but it comes from the traumatic events, and then it comes from different things that I have experienced within my life.
I say I'm still dealing with still processing, dealing with my emotions, but it also has gotten better too. Kind of growing up, that I think we all can agree that, our parents or our dad said, toughen up, don't cry. And then you just are operating in life. You just holding all that stuff in and going from situation to situation, and one day you're going to explode. That was definitely me, 2-3 months ago, where I've like that. And I realized that I was finding different vices to try to feel something. And realistically now, from therapy and really learning how to love myself, man, I do self-care. A lot of self-care. Like, I got a day out the week that every day, I know you said time or like that, but at least for me, I had to find the time. That one day, like, once I get off work, man, both of my phones, I'm putting them away. You can't call me or text me on this day. Whether I'm going to the movies or I'm doing whatever, I got to have this time for myself to regroup myself. Even tonight, when you said, like, man, you walked here? Yeah. And I just vibed out listening to music wherever like that. And I just had to get out the house wherever like that and just walk and just be not necessarily isolated, but just get my mind right. And walks usually help me. And not really, one of the things I had to realize with getting my emotions intact, it didn't matter what people had said about me, because that was a struggle too. Like I like to sew, and at first, man, when I learned how to sew, I was just like 7. People like, man, you gay or something like that? What you mean you like to sew? Especially when I was 21 years ago, and like now I sew and make clothes, whatever like that. I ain't worried about what people say because you know, Sean, so many people in Toledo wear stuff that I done made or whatever like that. So I'm glad that I can get my emotions out through other things now and have turned it into positivity or whatever like that. So I do believe you got to find just that balance of getting it out. And I know it's definitely hard and it takes a while for everybody, but it's needed. It's definitely needed. And when because I think you can't be the best version of you for other people until you the best version of you for yourself. So.
I used to be emotional, like way back in the days, but like since I met my wife and since I met God, honestly, I just changed. Like I feel like most of the problems that God said give Him our problems. And when I tell people that I don't worry about nothing for real, like I really don't worry about nothing. But like there's some things that probably is from when I was young. I'm just brought up that way, where when they get to me, I hate to see stuff on the floor. You don't want to see me show myself, man. Let me see something on the floor, and you just keep walking back and forth and everything, and don't pick it up. Then I'm mad. You know what I'm saying? Like for real. But like other than that though, like I don't get mad about nothing. For real. I don't let nothing bother me. I just give it to God and let him deal with it. That's his fight.
Man, I admire you.
Yeah, was you always like that?
I wasn't always like that.
Okay.
I
I mean, when I was young, when I was probably, how old are you? 16. When I was your age, I was running with the gangs. I used to run with the blood, not with the Bloods. I used to run with the Crips, and I used to run with folks. And the thing that changed me from that was one day I was hanging out over in Woodstock and Avondale. And I don't know if you guys heard about Pepe, whatever his name was. He shot them guys over there, but like him and my best friend my best friend was cousins, right? They got into a fight. Pepe got mad because he got beat up. He went inside and grabbed a gun and came out shooting, and the bullet hit the tree right next to me, and we took off running. And then my buddy said, "Man, I don't know what I would tell your mama and your dad if you would have got shot." Ever since then, I was like, man, forget that. I ain't messing with it. So, I mean, you know what I'm saying? I done did some things, man.
yes.
I done been out there and do whatever I did. You know what I'm saying? But I don't carry that around me now. I just look at it as a lesson. You know what I'm saying? So,
Once again, for all you guys that are not emotional, I tip my hat to you. I bow before you. Yeah, I'm very emotional. Sometimes I use my emotion for energy, but I would rather be emotional with my state of being right now than to completely turn off, because I can be like a rock at sometimes with no emotions whatsoever, where I get to the point where I just don't care about anything. But in my emotions, I've learned that they can be beneficial. Now, to what limit that I go, because I can go extreme. To be honest, I can go extreme. And I look at it, I say, well, man, I got these tear ducts up here. Let's use these suckers. But I am very, very emotional.
Man, I'm gonna say like I'm like an anomaly when it comes to emotions because I'm extremely emotional, and I could be less emotional. Like, but as far as like a lot of walks of life, I'm like a roller coaster when it comes to like I might say women get on my last nerves, and I might say I adore them so much that it hurts me. You know what I mean? I might want to be the bully in the room, and then I might be like, I love these brothers. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just up and down when it comes to a lot of stuff from my childhood, I got the mommy issues. I got the abandonment issues. I got all the little issues, and they kind of just make me who I am. But for the most part, I spent so much of my life trying to be strong that I'm the vulnerable and transparent that I could ever be. You know what I'm saying? If something made me want to cry, I cry in front of all y'all. Wouldn't care, think nothing of it. You know what I mean? Because I bottle so much in. So it's nothing to me to show any emotion that I have. You know, and sometimes I'm learning that showing. You have to be fearless because showing some of these emotions, people will weaponize them. You know, and I would say a lot of females would, you know, they'll weaponize our emotions as men because they don't know how to deal with them, or it makes them accountable. So not wanting to be accountable from selfish tendencies, they weaponize our emotions against us. You know, so when you show, you know, you got your situation where, say, if you show somebody you love them too much, they might want to push you away because of their issues. You know what I mean? It's just there's no right way to be a person. You know what I'm saying? So what I do is just be me and do my best at it. You know what I mean?
That's awesome. So it is now 8:35, 8:38 actually. But so we're going to keep this rolling. No, that's okay. We're going to keep this rolling, but we're definitely going to pick back up on what Dave just left off with, right? Because there's a lot of women that want to know. They don't believe men have emotions, right? And so really being able to talk about why you may, you know, protect yourself from showing emotions with that, what Dave said, like, you know, you may try to take it and use it against us. But I want to just thank each and every one of you for taking the time, for sharing, you know, your life, being transparent. And those who are viewing, we want to thank you for viewing, for asking questions, and we will be back next week. All right? All right, can we get a round of applause? For the first, this is about men. This is about men. We will see you all next week.